Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to this week's vlog. Today we're going to be taking a little road trip down to LA. Now this is going to be my first road trip here in the Mercedes C350. So I am a little nervous. I mean, I've driven this car on little trips here and there, but nothing over like 2 or 3 hours. And this is going to be a pretty much a 4-hour road trip. But I mean, I've been driving this car for a good while now, and I mean it's performed the entire time, so I'm sure it can make this trip. We just gotta watch our coolant temp, because the coolant does look like a little calcified, like a little old. I checked it last night. That's like my only little concern. We got to go through like a mountain pass, which is for those that aren't Californians, we got to go through the Grapevine. And for those that are Californians, you probably know what the Grapevine is, but it's like a mountain pass. It is pretty rough on vehicles that are not maintained properly. Ultimately, I think going through the Grapevine more or less just comes down to like driver skill, because some people cook their transmissions on there. So yeah, let's commence the 4-hour drive, and I'll keep you guys updated along the way. So I drove in right through there, and then the first thing I saw as I drove in was this F-150 like pre-runner trophy truck. I don't even know what you would call it, but this thing is sick. I want to say this is like an Optima Batteries livery, but I'm not too sure. Either way, I really like the colors on it. I would assume this is a wrap. Man, these tires are super fat. And then what I just noticed is that like the strut is connected right there to like that trailing arm, and it goes all the way up to up here. So like from up here down to this lower point, that's like the whole strut right there. Or I guess technically the one on the left is like the spring, and then the strut is on the right side right there, which is also right there. And then here's a look at the suspension up front. Not bad, not bad. That's pretty badass right there. I wouldn't mind owning something like this. Wow, so check this out. This is supposed to be like a 1,000,000-mile Mercedes. It's crazy because it doesn't even look like this thing's been driven all that much. 1,312,000 miles. That's bonkers right there. I highly doubt this would be original paint, but if it is, that's pretty good right there. I mean, it looks like it's held up pretty decent. Alright, so at this point there was a lot of background noise as I was trying to record, so I figured I'd go ahead and voice over these next clips of the vehicles that I recorded at the museum. But here we have a Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren, very rare car. Not sure how much it's worth, but these cars have always been cool. I'm not too big a fan on the looks of this vehicle, but it still is pretty rare, and it's a pretty cool collector vehicle nonetheless. Next up was a Tesla Roadster that they had up in the front lobby. I believe this was my first time ever seeing a Tesla Roadster, and for some reason it looked a lot more small in person than I would have expected it to be. I've only ever seen this car in pictures and in books, and it's crazy to think that they sent one of these up into space. It's not a bad looking car, but I think it's just a little bit too small for me. Up next we had this beautiful car that I'm not even too sure what it was called. I cannot remember at the moment. All I remember is that the white paint was very beautiful and that the car was electric. And I'm not really even a fan of electric cars, but I have to admit this one does look pretty nice. I liked the whole white on black thing that the car had going on. I thought it looked really clean and simplistic. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it was just the lighting inside the museum, but the paint looked really nice on this car. Up next we have the Hemi Cuda from Fast and the Furious 7, I believe. One of my favorite cars from the Fast and the Furious series. I mean, that movie series has a lot of great cars, but this is definitely one that stands out to me. And as the video progresses, you guys will see that this museum has a ton of Fast and the Furious vehicles. I kind of wish this car had a little bit more screen time in the movie, because in person it is a very good looking car, but I believe in the movie they only used it for like maybe a couple minutes. Up next we had a life-sized Lightning McQueen here on display. Now I was born in 2005, and the big Disney Pixar movie at the time was Cars. So I mean, I pretty much had a ton of Cars merchandise. I had plates, shirts, you know, toys. I had Lightning McQueen everything. So it's pretty cool to see like a life-sized one for the first time ever. Up next, we had one of my personal favorites from the entire Fast and the Furious franchise. We have the wide body Dodge Challenger from the end of the fifth movie and the beginning of the sixth movie. Now, what was pretty cool about this one is that it was actually a stick shift Challenger. I believe this car is just a Challenger SRT8 with like a wide body kit on it. But I don't know, man, something about the way they designed this car just makes it look really menacing, and I've always been a big fan of it. Up next, we had I don't even remember what this is, but I think it was called like a Zinger or something like that. One of like the newer modern supercars. I thought the design was pretty neat. For me, the most interesting thing about this car was definitely the interior. As you can see, there's only two seats, and the second seat is right behind the driver's seat. So that's pretty cool. I feel like it would be kind of cramped trying to sit in there. But, I mean, still pretty cool nonetheless. I'm not sure if this one was electric, but it looks like it would be. Not a bad car though, pretty cool. Up next, we had a blue Lamborghini Countach. I'm pretty sure I've seen Lamborghini Countaches, or I've seen at least one before in Monterey. But this one was really pretty. I really liked the color on it. The tan interior was pretty much immaculate, and I've never been a huge fan on the looks of the Lamborghini Countach, but I mean, it's a part of Lamborghini history, so how can you not like it? Up next, we had this super futuristic looking car right here. It looks like it was called a low res car. I think I have actually seen one of these before, believe it or not. I saw it on a trailer on Ocean Avenue in Monterey. But listen, I'm not too big a fan of this car. I'm just not really into the whole futuristic kind of thing. Just really isn't my cup of tea personally. Up next, we had a Volkswagen Beetle rally car, it looks like, driven by Tanner Faust. I've never really been a fan of the Volkswagen Beetle, but to see a Volkswagen Beetle race car is something pretty cool. Up next is this Aston Martin Valkyrie, or at least I believe it was an Aston Martin Valkyrie. Frankly, I'm not that big of a fan when it comes to Aston Martin, but they make pretty cool cars here and there, and I guess this would be one of them. Up next is this Aston Martin F1 car. I'm not too sure if this car was actually ever driven or who drove it. Frankly, I'm not that big of a fan when it comes to F1. I'm more of a drifting guy myself, but still pretty cool to see something like this. I can only imagine how much money this car is actually worth. It is pretty crazy to see how they design this car. They're just absolutely insane looking cars. And the cockpit is like super tiny in there. It looks like it's a really tight fit, and it's crazy that a driver has to sit in there for hours. Up next is this Toyota Supra that was in Fast and the Furious 7. I believe I want to say this car was at the end of the seventh film. And all of these cars that are on display here, I believe were actually movie used vehicles. These cars aren't replicas, I think they are legit. Here's some even more vehicles that were used in the Fast and the Furious franchise. Here we have a Plymouth GTX driven by Dominic Toretto in the 8th movie, I want to say. I don't know. I gotta brush up on my Fast and the Furious movies, honestly, but this car is super cool. This car actually did get a good amount of screen time in what I believe was the beginning of whatever movie it was in. Really cool car. But I wouldn't say this one is one of my favorites. Now this one right here, this is one of my favorites. The Fast and the Furious 6 Dodge Charger Daytona. Something about this car has always been so beautiful. I think just the way they designed it, the paint color, the simplistic lines of the vehicle, the longitude of the actual car, plus the rim selection. I don't know, man. I've just always been a big fan of this car, and I'm really not even that big of a fan of the sixth film. But this car, to me, has always stood out, and for that reason, the Fast and the Furious 6 Dodge Charger Daytona has always been one of my dream vehicles. Up next, we had the Mitsubishi Eclipse from the first film, and this entire row here, as you guys are going to see in a minute, contained all of the vehicles from that initial race in the first film. So I'll go ahead and be quiet so you guys can go ahead and take a look at the cars. Up next is this Toyota Supra from the first Fast and the Furious film. Now, I'm not too sure if this was an actual screen-used movie car. There's so many replicas of this car nowadays that it's really kind of hard to tell whether or not a car is legitimately like one of the original screen used cars. But if this is a replica, I think it was done pretty well. I mean, everything looks pretty spot on, and the car looks almost exactly the same way it did in the first film. Up next is the Ford Mustang from Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Some people say that Tokyo Drift is the worst film of the entire series, but frankly, I disagree with that. I actually really enjoyed Tokyo Drift, and this car definitely stood out in that film. Then we had a Nissan S14 Silvia that was driven by Letty in the first film, if I'm not mistaken. What kind of tripped me out is that when I remember watching the first film for the first time when I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old, I remember this car being more like a wine red in the first movie. But here in person, I mean, as you can see, the paint is immaculate. It's beautiful. But it's not really like that same wine red that I saw in the first film. It's more of like a sparkly purplish color, is the way I would describe it. Then here we had another one of my favorites from the Fast and the Furious franchise, the Tokyo Drift Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution that was rear-wheel drive converted in the movie. As you guys know, Mitsubishi Lancer Evos are originally all-wheel drive, but I believe for the film they had one converted to rear-wheel drive, which is pretty cool in and of itself. I've always been a big fan of how this car looked. I think this is probably one of the best looking import cars in the entire series, and my favorite thing was that big APR wing right on the back of the car. Up next was this futuristic looking McLaren F1. I don't know if this would be considered something of like a resto mod or what you would even call it, but it's clearly like a modified McLaren, and it looks really cool. This one definitely caught my attention. I mean, everything about this car was beautiful. Looks like it was called a Gordon Murray Special McLaren F1. I don't know who Gordon Murray is, but it looks like he builds a pretty nice cars, because I mean, this thing was pretty much immaculate, and this was actually one of my personal favorites of the entire museum. And here we have the original Bugatti before they came out with the Veyron. Now this is an old car because I remember driving this one back on Forza Horizon 1. I'm not too big on the looks of this car, but at least from what I can remember, this car was pretty fast when I used to play it on Forza Horizon 1. I'm not a big fan of the headlights, but it's still a pretty rare car nonetheless. Up next we have a pretty nice Shelby Cobra. I would assume that it's a real Shelby Cobra and not like a replica. I personally prefer the blue Shelby Cobras with the white stripes down the middle, but this one came out pretty nice in a nice silver metallic, I guess is what you would call it. Not too bad for a Shelby Cobra. Then we had a nice pearl white Lamborghini Aventador. You know, I've never really been the biggest fan of the Lamborghini Aventador, but it still is a pretty cool car. I would have preferred, or I would have liked if they would have had like a Lamborghini Murcielago in the collection, which I actually prefer over the Aventador, but it still is a very beautiful car. And I do have to say that I think that the Aventador looks a lot better in person than it does in pictures. Pictures just aren't the same, you know, but in person, the car looks really nice. Then here we had some Ford GTs. So the blue one must have been the first generation of the Ford GT. And then in the middle we have the most modern one in a nice yellow with blue stripes. Not the biggest fan of that color combination, but I mean it's still a Ford GT, so I mean you can't really go wrong with any color you pick. Then we have another silver Ford GT right here, and this is my personal favorite generation of the Ford GT. I mean, the car is just beautiful. I mean, Ford really knew what they were doing when they designed this car. Not to mention the killer engine that this car has. It's just a work of art. Now for some reason they had this Ferrari F12 Berlinetta hidden in a corner. I think this car really deserves to be put in a better spot, because I mean the F12 Berlinetta is one of my dream cars and honestly one of my most favorite Ferraris of all time. I wish I could have gotten some better angles, but it was kind of stuck in a corner. Up next we had this Audi R8, this second generation Audi R8 on display in a nice orange color, and once you get to the back, looks like they expanded the engine and all of its components so that you could really analyze everything that goes together to build these cars. I think this was a brilliant idea. It's really cool to see everything expanded out and taken apart like this. And I thought it was really cool to see just how everything goes together in these mid-engine sports cars. You know, you don't get to see stuff like this every day.
Up next we had another Audi R8, but this one is a first generation R8 in a nice white color with a V10, and it was a gated manual, so that makes it even more cool. I've always preferred the looks of the second gen R8, but I can't lie, the first gen R8 is also a really good looking car. And they really aren't even that expensive, so who knows, I could possibly own one of these pretty soon. And here we have a old NASCAR Dodge Daytona. Now this is just a piece of NASCAR history right here. And this was a bit before my time. By the time I started watching NASCAR, they had a bit more modern cup cars. But I mean, this thing is just, it's crazy to look at. It's crazy to see in person. I've actually seen clips online of this car idling before. And I mean, this car is just it's a beast in and of itself. So not only is it a piece of history, but it's just a cool car all around. Up next we have a red Mitsubishi 3000 GT. This car is a little special to me because I used to be driven around in a red 3000 GT, almost just like this one when I was a young kid, about 4 or 5 years old. Then we had a Toyota MR2, but I kind of just walked past that one because I'm not that big a fan of the MR2. And then there's a look at the rear of the 3000 GT. Just a rare car, and it's really beautiful. And here we have some old Cadillacs. I decided to film these because it's so crazy to see just how big cars used to be back in the day. One thing I like about these older cars is that the seats always look super comfortable. You just don't get those same kind of seats in cars nowadays. Up next we had this Mercedes-Benz right here that was owned by no other than Saddam Hussein himself. I have no idea how they even managed to get their hands on this car, but somehow they did. And so this is another piece of history that's just super cool to analyze and look at. And what's cool too is that they left all of the imperfections that the car has. If you walk around the car and see it in person, it has dings, it has dents, it has scratches. And I don't know, it's just cool to analyze, it's cool to look at, and it's cool knowing that this was Saddam Hussein's car. Up next we had a Buick Regal GNX. Now this car has always been another one of my favorites in terms of looks. It's a very beautiful car, a very menacing car, but I just can't get past the fact that they put a V6 in this thing, and I think that just kills the whole mood of the entire vehicle. Then here we have a Ford F-150 single cab in a nice red color from the first Fast and the Furious film. I really wish this was another one of those vehicles that got a little more screen time because, I'm a personal fan of anything Ford really, and so this truck is really cool to see in person as well. And here we have some more older NASCARs here on display. I wasn't able to see who were the drivers of these two cars right here, but they were still really cool to see. The first one, the black one, is a Ford Taurus, and the one next to it, I'm not too sure if it's like a Chevy Lumina, but has a nice Hardee's livery on it. Really cool. And of course, it's another piece of racing history and a piece of NASCAR history. And you don't really see things like this over here in Southern California. And here we had a whole row of F1 cars, so I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for this clip so you guys can enjoy the cars. And the last car of the day was this red Ferrari F1 car. Now this was my last clip of the day, but there are still a ton more cars in the museum. So if you ever get the chance to go to this museum in person, I would definitely recommend it.
I'm currently going down Wilshire Boulevard, and it looks pretty nice so far. There's like nothing but AMGs and like Bentleys around me and stuff. Well, there's a Ferrari. I think SF90 or something like that. There's the Giorgio Armani. I don't really wear none of this poor people clothes though. You know me, I stay shopping at Ross. I kind of just want to see how long Rodeo Drive actually is, because I think the road itself is actually kind of short in distance. But there is like a lot of shopping stuff though. There is a lot of stores here. I mean, it's not too bad. It's a lot of people, a lot of traffic. You know, pretty much what I've seen on TV and in the movies. But yeah, I kind of like Ocean Avenue in Carmel a little bit better, which Rodeo Drive is, I would say, the most like comparable thing to that. But man, I thought Carmel traffic was bad. This place is even worse. All right, guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and end the vlog here. We already made it past the Grapevine. I stopped here for dinner at the outlets at Tejon. The C350 is still in one piece, and the engine and transmission are still intact. And I don't mean to say anything to incriminate myself, but this thing was like flying through the mountain pass, dude. Honestly, like, it felt so smooth. Frankly, I'm impressed. The engine didn't struggle at all. The transmission didn't struggle at all. This is by far the best car I've driven on any road trip. And honestly, guys, the way I'm feeling right now, I think I might even drive this car to SEMA this year. I know it's a long trip from Central California all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, but honestly, I think this car can actually do it. My original plan was to fly there, but I think this car will be able to make that road trip. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this week's vlog. I'm not sure what I'm gonna post for next week. I still need to go ahead and order some motor mounts to find a way to get the 5.3 in the New Edge Mustang, so we could work on that. So we'll see, and we'll find something to film for next week. There's always plenty of things to do. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this week's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Like, comment, sub, and all that stuff, and I'll see you guys later.